Yeah, good go.
Oh, that's awesome.
There's one.
Yeah.
You bet you, man. Got him.
Hey everybody, welcome to another edition of Harrod Outdoors Videocast. This is episode 4 and we're talking about ice fishing. Today I have Bob Loomis here from Max Lure. I've talked about him in the previous episodes and we're going to tell you
That's
about...
not good.
Well, I know it's not good. We're going to tell you a little bit about some of our ice fishing trips that we've been doing lately and the gear that we're using. We've had a couple of shows that you may have seen. Make sure that you check those out right here on YouTube. If you subscribe to YouTube, our YouTube channel, you will get notification of these video casts as we post them. And also you can check out all of our TV shows, the Northwest Outdoorsmen and Harrod's Cookhouse Field to Table. So a couple years ago, 2 years ago I guess, well no, 1 year ago, you and I went up to British Columbia and fished Lake Aileen. And I think that was kind of our first experience with ice fishing, and we were going up there because we were really interested in catching larger kokanee, which they have quite a few in British Columbia. And so the episode that I'm talking about is called Chrome Through the Ice. So you want to look for that on our channel here. But so Bob, let me ask you, you brought some things here for us to look at today. What were we using up there?
Well, you know, one of our pro staffers up there, Danny Coyne, has been fishing kokanee through the ice for a while. And obviously down in Washington, well, let me rephrase that. Down in central Washington, western Washington, we don't get cold enough weather to really get a lot of good ice fishing.
Right.
So in turn, you know, you got to go to where the ice is. So with Danny up north, he'd been spending quite a bit of time doing some ice fishing, and he had different types of things that he was using and set up as far as fishing through the ice. And it was something that you know, we love kokanee fishing. You've seen a number of the trolling shows and things that we've done, you know, as far as trolling. We haven't done much in the way of jigging as of yet, which we're going to, but this stuff through the ice, man, I'm going to tell you something. That was a lot of fun.
It's a lot of fun.
Oh, man.
Yeah. Yeah, and then Danny Coyne is somebody that you'll be meeting at one point in one of our video casts. Danny's an excellent fisherman out of British Columbia, and like Bob said, he's been involved with Max Lure now for a while, and he's just a wonderful individual, great fisherman. So, yeah, so we went up and we met Danny, and we went to Lake Aileen, and maybe one of the funniest parts of that whole show is just we took Lance Mers with us, and so we get there, and Bobby and Lance had never been out on the ice before fishing like that, so Danny decided to give them a little safety briefing. And you should have seen the look on their faces. Oh yeah, well if you fall through, you know, you keep, you know, put your arms up on the ice and kick your feet, and they're looking at each other like, holy crap, you know.
I'm telling you what. You're going out on the ice, you know. Now generally you'd be trolling this area, but you know, now there's ice on there. And, you know, we asked Danny, he said, how much ice is there? And he goes, oh, there's like, I think there was like 12 or 14 inches or something like that. You know?
Yeah, right.
And I said, man, is that enough? He goes, well, you know, you can drive a truck on like 3 inches. And I said, yeah, you might drive your truck on 3 inches. I ain't driving out there. No way, you know. But anyhow, so he gave us this whole song and dance on, you know, lay briefing. Flat, you know, and do all that. Yeah. And I'm thinking, no, this isn't good.
But anyway, after we got through that, we went out on the ice and we picked a spot. And you know, with ice fishing, it's not a whole lot different than when you're trolling, except for the fact that now you're going to be stationary, but you're still trying to look for features in the lake where you're going to find fish. And so we went to the first place where there was a drop off from flats to deeper water, and those fish were working that edge. And so we drill our 6 or 8 inch hole, and down we go. And you know, the real key with ice fishing, at least for kokanee especially, is about the attraction, is it not?
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely.
And so, you know, what we are using up there has worked really well are the sling blades, and he's got one of those set up here, and also glow hooks. And we're using a lot of the same kinds of bait that we would be using when we're trolling, except for now we're jigging with them. So we're trying to get the fish to come to us.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
You know, you fish the areas where the fish, you know, some type of thermocline or some area in that lake where those fish are going to be feeding. Once you get into that area, now obviously, you know, you drill a hole, you're stationary. So now is what you got to do is you got to try to draw those fish to where you're at. Well, you can't chum; it's illegal.
No, can't do that.
So you have to create some type of attraction. Well, going to the larger attractors, or going to like a sling blade, and then utilizing something like a glow hook tipped with a maggot or a small piece of corn. You know, you add in a little bit of scent along with that, and you know, voila, you start sucking kokanee in, and it's really something. You know, as you're trolling, you troll through an area where you believe there's going to be fish. You mark fish on the graph, you turn around, you go back through them, you know, you work that school of fish. Well, these fish are working us, is what they're doing.
Yeah, right, exactly.
These fish are working us now because we're in a stationary spot,
right,
and we have to suck them into wanting to bite that glow hook. And so it's something that it's very interesting on watching or doing the different things that we've done. When we fished at Aileen, we had a pretty good idea of what we were doing and why we were doing it. And we brought fish in, you know, there again, we hit the same thing. We hit a problem with weather. Weather kind of shut them off. The 3 days previous to that had been very stable barometer. Fishing had been fantastic, just off the hook type stuff. The first day we got there, I mean, it was...
System came through.
Yeah, system came through,
Our
snowing, you
Our
know,
luck.
dropped 20 degrees. Our luck.
Yeah,
you
right.
know, typical. Fish shut off. So we had to really work to catch the fish that we caught.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah, that's true. I mean, it's just like any other fishing,
oh,
right?
absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. You're dealing with all of the issues that you have to deal with.
Yep.
You know, finding that thermocline,
Right.
fishing that particular depth, and you know, knowing where the fish are. Once you've got that, now you got to get them to bite.
Yeah.
And that's where you have to actually work at them.
So we use the same kinds of strategies that you would out of a boat. In other words, once we find these locations in the lake, then we're using our sonar to help us indicate where fish are. And we'll talk about that a little bit more as we move on in this, because we learned some new things this year when we fished up by Lone Butte about how we can use that technology to really to our advantage. But in this case at Aileen, we have our flasher sonar there, just a little round circle. If you've never used one of those before, it's pretty interesting. And I have some images I'll show you here, but essentially it's just a round image of what you're looking at, and you can see your gear dropping down, and then when a fish comes into it, it shows up like that. So you learn to see whose gear's what at different depths, and you're trying to attract the fish. And you're doing it just like you would with any other controlled depth fishery. If you see fish on your sonar, you fish for them at that depth. Like if you drop down with your downrigger, if you see fish on your sonar, that's what you do. You drop down. And so that's what we were doing here. And it's interesting how throughout the day the fish rose or dropped in the column, and we were trying to take advantage of that by using, you know, a major amount of flash. Sure. And as Bob mentioned, you know, some scent with our bait that we're using. Procure's come out with what they call Mr. Ice Hole gels, and these work great for ice fishing. They don't have the UV in them. That way, if it gets all over your line, you're not, you know, having that kind of an issue in the water. You like the name, don't you?
I do.
I knew you did. Do you suppose Steve came up with that?
I'm pretty sure
Yeah,
Steve probably came up with that.
I'm pretty sure he did too.
Oh my God.
But it's an interesting technique, though, that we use. Once you have the gear, your scent, and you're knowing where the fish are in your water column, then it's a matter of presentation.
Yeah. When you get into the whole presentation thing, you know, last year fishing at Aleen, when you're looking at a sonar, you know, we're neophytes at this whole thing.
Yeah.
You know, the folks in the Midwest and you know, East Coast, you know, where they've been ice fishing for a long time. These guys know what they're doing, you know, and we're looking at this stuff like, you know.
Yeah. How do you read that?
You know, yeah, exactly. You know.
Are we trolling?
No
Where's
clue.
the net?
Yeah, no clue. You know, and so we're trying to figure all this stuff out. Yet we're trying to, you know, catch fish,
Right.
and trying to understand, you know, how it is. And I can remember this last year when we did this. You know, we'd be jigging, and all of a sudden there'd be fish there, and pretty soon we're jigging to beat the band, and then the fish would go away. Well, we learned something this year. We used a different type of electronics. And, you know, just to digress just a little bit, we ended up going up to Lone Butte this year. Last year we fished at Aleen, which is close to Kelowna, you know, an hour out of Kelowna. And it was a fishery that average size fish, you know, 12 to 14 inches, nice fish, you know, through the ice, understanding what we're doing, you know, trying to learn this whole thing and do something different. This year we went up to Lone Butte and we fished a couple different lakes. We fished Bridge and we fished Hathaway. And what we were doing is we're actually fishing on fish that were anywhere from 14 to 17 inches, you know, up to 2.5 pounds minimum. And so we're fishing for much larger fish. And,
Yeah, sure.
you know, stuff that we one of our trolling videos, we went up and we trolled Bridge and Decca and a couple lakes up there earlier this year. So we wanted to fish these large fish. Anyhow, getting back to where we were going with this, we took a look at this whole thing, and the gentleman we were fishing with had a new electronics that had just come out. And this electronics, you could actually see fish. You could turn the unit and see fish a couple 100 feet out, 360 degrees around.
Yeah.
So you could see fish out away from you. So when we spotted fish out away from our hole, we turned around and we all started jigging to beat the band, to draw them in. Well, when we started seeing fish, then is what we would do is we realized if we kept jigging,
They would go away.
it spooked the fish away.
Yeah.
So we had to stop, and then we had to work the fish. Now, I had made a statement earlier about, you know, typical for fishing up in British Columbia, we hit the same thing. They'd had like a week and a half of stable weather. Fishing's been fantastic.
We
Should
hit
have
a
been here
blizzard.
yesterday. You know, that whole thing. Well, we get up there. It starts snowing sideways. It's
Yeah.
blowing 30 miles an hour.
Not
It's 5
fun.
degrees out. You know, with the wind chill, it's 35 below or whatever. You know, I mean, it's just unbelievable. Everything shuts off.
Yep.
So you're sitting there watching your electronics, and you're watching your gear, and you're watching fish that's got to be like this far away, looking at your gear, and they're not biting it. So you have to do something
Right.
to get them to want to bite that bait. Whether you're putting more scent on it, whether you're putting a different type of bait on it, whether you're moving it a little bit differently. But like I said, the large erratic types of movement where you're getting those flashers moving tremendously, even bending them and creating all sorts of different types of movement on that thing floating down. It just, you know, sometimes it
was
worked,
working and
but
sometimes it wasn't.
when you did the erratic stuff, when the fish were there on your gear, it spooked them away.
Yeah.
So you had to be extremely, you know, you had to go to
Right.
a finesse style of fishing. And it was phenomenal watching how those fish actually reacted to what you were doing. I don't know if that happens everywhere. I know that it happens in Canada.
Well,
Those
it's-
Canadian kokanee, they didn't want anything to do with that product if you started moving it when they were relatively close to the bait.
I think we learned something about our experience at Aleen with that, because
Yeah.
we were just looking at the flasher, and this new sonar that our buddy Mark had allowed us to see fish in real time. And so when you had that information, we just learned, like Bob said, that you you know, you just slow down your jig and you actually would have better luck. At Aileen, we didn't have that technology, and I think we scared some fish away.
I think so.
And I think this is kind of one of those things that as you're learning a new fishery as we are, a new fishing style as we are, you know, you just go away with new knowledge every time. And so it's pretty interesting. And we had success at Aileen. You know, you'll see that when you watch the Chrome Through the Ice television show, but we had to really work at it, and I think we could have been successful sooner had we known a few things that we know. So yeah, Lake Aileen was a good learning experience for us.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You know, and you watch. The thing is, you know, one thing I learned a long time ago: if somebody's having success at something, you got to emulate it. Unless you just don't want to catch fish.
Right.
You know, if you just want to sit there and enjoy yourself and look at the trees and the moose and the squirrels and wolves and stuff like that, you know, that's one thing. If you wanted to catch fish, you got to pay attention to what the guys that are catching fish.
Yep.
And, you know, watching Danny, because he had done it before, how he was fishing to those fish, you know, that was really the true success that,
Right.
that I had. You know,
Exactly.
at Aileen, was paying attention to what he was doing. Well, this year, it was kind of the same thing to an extent, but it was also trying to figure out how to trigger that fish, because Danny was, you know, we all had a difficult time figuring out what we were doing or getting them to want to bite.
Yeah.
So
yeah, exactly. And he has a real, I don't know, Danny just has the touch for it. He's done it a lot more than we have. He has a very smooth jigging technique that he uses. These small ice rods, we haven't talked about that yet, but obviously you use a different rod. These small rods are the ones that we use for ice fishing. Part of the reason is if you're sitting in a tent, which we were, or even if not, if you're sitting outside, you can't use a regular length rod, otherwise you're sitting back, you know, from as far apart as we are here, and you're trying to manage your rod tip that far away. These rods are made so that you can fish over your hole.
Yeah, you're looking at 24 to 42 inch type rods.
Yeah, exactly. And they're and I'll tell you, they're just a lot of fun because they're a lightweight rod. You get a big fish. Now at like we said with Bridge Lake up there, those fish had shoulders.
Oh yeah,
those are nice. Those are nice fish. You know, they're in pushing the 3-pound range, just like we had from when we trolled up there in the summer. And by the way, that other episode that we mentioned is called Caribou Kokanee. Look for that here on our YouTube channel, and you can see how we trolled for kokanee during the summer at that lake and the size of those fish, and that's what we were doing. But boy, talk about fun playing a large fish on the, you know, these particular
the small
gear. It's a lot of fun.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely.
Now, one of the other places that we fished, and you didn't get to go, unfortunately. You had to work or something. I don't know why you didn't get to go. I think you had to work.
Yeah, you guys go fish without me.
Yeah, I went fish without him. We went to Lake Cascade in Idaho. Now, Cascade is a small town just south of McCall in Idaho. It has a very nice lake there, Lake Cascade, and it has world-class perch in it. They're huge. I mean, up to 3 pounds and more. And so I got to go there, my dad and I, and you'll see that. It's a Lake Cascade giant perch. You can find that again here on the YouTube channel. And that was a little different. Yet again, fishing through the ice. We went out very far. Again, working structure, looking for structure in the lake. We were looking for locations along a channel where those perch are feeding. They tend to do just like any sort of other predator. The things that they're feeding, they push up against the side as it slopes away out of those channels, and they're feeding there. And so you find those breaks in the lake, and that's where we're fishing. Now, one of the things we did there was we really tried to match the hatch, so to speak. We tried to match what they were feeding on, and those perch do everything from bloodworms to small fish to eating just about anything they can find.
Pretty much they can eat.
Anything they can find. And so
little kids at the bus stop.
Little kids at the bus stop. One of the things we found was that as we were pulling some of those fish up, they were regurgitating some small little shiners, and so we were using the Sonic bait fish. Is this the 1/4 ounce or 1/8 ounce size right here?
Actually, that's a 1/10 ounce.
Okay, this is a 1/10 ounce, so this is the size that we're using. Oh yeah, 16th. And so
that's close.
Yeah, so this is the one that we were using, and when you laid that alongside of what was coming out of the gullet, it was a perfect match.
Oh, perfect.
And we were using a little bit of orange. This is a black and glow, and we were using an orange and glow.
Right.
And then we were tipping those with maggots. Again, the same kinds of things we were using for kokanee, but it worked excellent for that. And again, it was about a jigging technique. It was very cold, fish are very lethargic, and so you had to sort of learn as you saw those fish come in on your flasher to slow your jigging down or even maybe stop. And we were fishing with Mike Hall. Mike Hall is an extremely experienced fisherman, and he was guiding us how to do that, and he was fishing with my dad Howard, and you'll enjoy that. They had quite the conversation, those two old guys.
Oh, I bet.
Yeah.
I bet.
It was a lot of fun, and you'll see that in the television show. But sonic bait fish work pretty well, and we use them for kokanee too.
Well, I was going to say, one of the things that we actually did that was really interesting is we actually went to the Double D Dodger and used the sonic through the ice, same way that we were using the sling blade and the glow hook. And for some reason, that sonic really held the fish in the area.
Yeah,
It was really strange because the way when we were jigging, we look around, we'd see fish come a ways away, start jigging, and we'd get them in there. But when we were using the sonic actually held them there longer for some reason.
Yeah.
Now, I think we only got bit a few times, but for some reason they stayed there, and they stayed there, and they stayed there. It was one of those things. It was just strange, and so you tried to suck them into biting in one way, shape, or form. Whether you twitched it, whether you just swam it, whether you did a number of different things, trying to get them to bite.
Right, exactly.
And I think we only caught a couple fish on them versus the glow hook.
Right.
But for some reason,
it attracted them.
It held them there
Right.
much longer than anything else did.
Well, I think one of the things that we found on that whole trip is that smaller was better when it came to getting them to bite.
Yep.
And probably had a lot to do with that system that had gone through again and the weather we had. But, and we find that when we troll. We find that when we troll too, that a lot of times you need to minimize, and it doesn't matter if it's a sockeye, if it's kokanee, or if it's trout, you might need to minimize the bait that you're using to the smallest thing, and then you have a little better luck. And I think that was our case up there. This was holding them there.
Yep.
I think it was acting a little bit like an attractor, like our Dodgers, Double Ds, or the sling blades, but they wanted to bite these glow hooks, and we were putting a little tiny maggot.
Oh, we were using one maggot.
One maggot, or we're using just a little bit of krill, just the smallest piece of krill, and then of course some scent that would maybe trigger the bite, ultimately. But I think it's interesting to see how fish behave.
Oh, it
Nothing
is.
else.
It is.
Yeah.
It was watching that stuff that Mark had. It was absolutely
it was
unbelievable.
So cool watching those. It's pretty amazing. Now, one of the other things that we found was real important with this particular trip that we're talking about to Bridge Lake and Hathaway that we just completed is that the fish were, being a little finicky, and they were also biting light. And so one of the things our buddy Mark did, he missed a couple fish. So the first thing he did was he pulled his hook out, and he pulled out the guided field sharpener. This is made by Work Sharp, and if you've never seen one of these are pretty cool. It has both coarse and fine diamond plates here that you sharpen your knives on. But the cool thing for fishing is the ceramic hone that it has here. So when you're sharpening a knife, you usually put it on the smooth side, but if you twist it over here, you get these grooves, and then you can sharpen your hooks. And so Mark grabbed this and he sharpened his hook, put it back down, and he immediately caught a fish when he got bit. I mean, it was just like boom. He goes, "Yeah, guess I needed. My hooks weren't sharp," but that's a really important thing when they're being finicky in particular.
Oh, absolutely.
Is make sure you have a sticky hook.
Yeah, it helps. Everything helps.
Everything helps.
I mean, when those fish don't want to bite and they're being finicky, you got to use everything to your benefit.
Yeah, exactly. That was a really fun trip. Maybe we'll talk about that one a little bit more. Again, we were north of Lone Butte, or in the Lone Butte vicinity. The fish there are much bigger than they were in Aileen, And that's part of the reason that we went up there. We were just excited about trying it through the ice. Now these lakes, compared to Aileen, were much larger. Bridge Lake is a huge lake, and so when you go out and you pick your spot that you're going to drill your hole, again, it's all about getting the fish to come to you. And one of the things that we did notice using this sonar technology that we had is that the fish were on the move, and they would move in schools just like you'd expect kokanee to do. And if we could see them...
But those schools were way smaller schools.
They were very small schools.
They were like 3 to 10 fish.
Yeah, exactly.
So,
but still
not large,
huge. Yeah, that's a good point. They're not large. But we could see them, and then we would jig, as we've mentioned before, to improve that attraction and get them over to us. But, you know, there's a lot of just waiting for fish to come back to you, you know?
That was not fun.
That was not fun. It was very cold.
It was cold. It was one of those things that after a while, you're on autopilot, you know, you're jigging. All of a sudden, oh my God, there's fish on the screen, don't move.
Jig slower, jig slower.
Slow down.
And you know, we didn't do a lot of moving,
No.
you know, like we did at Aileen. And you'll see that at Aileen. These guys, boy, talk about, you know, good buddies, let me tell you. So I'm of course I'm filming, right, making the television show, getting to fish some, and these guys decide, well, you know, they're not biting here in the tent, let's go drill a few holes and look around. So they did that. They got out and they took off. The sun came out a little bit, and they drilled several holes, and now they're around the lake. Well, you know, in a tent I've got them all captured, right? I got them all on screen. So if one of them gets a fish, I can, you know, capture the action. Now they're 100 yards that way and 100 yards that way and 100 yards that way, and these guys, every time they'd catch a fish, they'd holler at me. So I'd run over there, and it's like, oh, it's already on the ice, and then they don't get a bite, and then, you know, Lance over there, Richie,
Yeah.
I got a fish.
Oh my God,
You
that
guys.
was unbelievable, man. Yeah. Richie would go take off, and he'd go over to somebody else's hole. Yeah. Richie, I got another fish. Come on, get over. He'd turn around and he'd get halfway there and go, forget it, he's on the ice. Unhook it, you know, bait up again, drop back down. He'd turn around and walk away, and he'd go over check out somebody else's stuff. Yeah. Richie, I'm bit, I got another fish. By the time he'd get halfway over there, he'd have to turn around and go back again.
Yeah.
It was great. Yeah.
Yeah.
We never got any of those on film, by the way. So.
Well, I finally get one of Danny. He's a long ways off, and he loses one right in the hole, and he reaches down and he scoops it out of the hole at the last second before it goes down. But that's about it. That's about it.
That was the best part of that whole
Yeah,
trip.
yeah.
When we first got there, oh my God, I've never ice fished in my entire life. And we get all set up. We got your chair, you're baited up, you're rigged up. And Danny goes, okay, now this is, first I looked at him. I mean, like I said, my first thing is I want to know what he's doing so that I know how to do it. I said, okay, now show us how to do, what are we doing? And he goes, well, you know, you look on the screen right here, you look on the sonar, and you're looking for blips, and I'm looking at this, and it's going like this, and I'm going, there's nothing on there, you know, I mean, I don't see, he goes, okay, now watch, now I'm going to drop it down, and he drops it down only like, you know, 10, 12 feet at the most underneath the ice. You can see it through the hole, you know. And he goes, now I want you to jig like this, and he goes, oh, there's a fish, and he starts reeling up, and I'm thinking, get out of my hole. What are you doing in my hole? You know?
Yeah, right. I need a fish
yeah,
now.
Exactly. And he gets up and he throws it on the ice and everything, and I get over there and I sit down and I drop it down in there, and I'm not down there, I don't know, I'm not down there a minute. Oh, there's one. First fish through the ice. Oh my God, this is going to be unbelievable. I get it up there. I get the fish up on top. The fish comes unbuttoned and goes flop, flop, flop. And I go, oh my God, it's heading towards the hole. I jump over there. I try to grab it. I'm squealing like a little schoolgirl. And all of a sudden, down through the ice, I'm thinking, oh, no, I better not go down that hole. It'd be bad. Bad rabbit hole to go down.
You tried.
Yeah,
You tried.
I tried to get it.
It was gone.
And I lost it. So there I am. I lost the first fish I ever hooked through the ice. Unbelievable. And these guys are just laughing.
Hey, and it was a big one.
Oh yeah, it was like one of the biggest ones that we caught the whole time.
The whole time, and he lost it.
Yeah. Yeah, that was just beautiful.
So yeah, so Danny did the same thing when he was out running around, but he was able to get his out of the hole, and he was laughing like crazy. But yeah, well, you know, if you don't have fun on these trips, you know, you got to have fun. Let me tell you.
Yeah,
these trips are a
the
lot
Canadian
of fun.
sonar. That
The
was
Canadian
beautiful.
sonar. That's yeah.
I look over there on the other side of the tent, and Danny's down in his hole, and he's like this, and I'm going, Danny, what
are you doing?
What are you doing? He looks up at me, he goes, Canadian sonar, eh? And he goes back down.
Better than Hockey Night in
Oh,
Canada
yeah.
is what he said. It was priceless.
Oh my God, that was beautiful.
Well, no one says we don't have fun on these, and I'll tell you, when you watch this show that we just finished filming up in Lone Butte, Maisie come to see me again, then you're going to find out we have a lot of fun on these trips. I mean, you know, you get in these tents and it's cold and you're crammed in there together, and you know the jokes start flying, or you try to tease each other. So it is a lot of fun. But I'll tell you, and on this trip up there, I don't think we lost any down the hole. We learned our lesson.
No.
And
Didn't allow that to happen.
Didn't allow it to happen, and out the door they go.
Yeah, exactly.
But we caught some really nice fish up there, and had a great time, you know, fishing up there through the ice. And if you've never done ice fishing, you know, we're really, you know, part of what we're wanting to get across to you is you really need to try it. It is so much fun. It doesn't take a lot of money to get set up to do one of these. The gear that Max Lure makes is extremely effective for all kinds of things that you would be fishing for here in the Northwest and in southern BC. You know, really get out there and try it. I mean, it's a blast.
Oh, it is.
Yeah.
You know, yeah, it's a lot of fun. Ice fishing is becoming it's becoming much larger across the United States. And, you know, we're learning out here how to do that. Like I said, you know, Eastern Washington, when you get over into the Spokane area, things like that, it's getting cold enough to where you get a lot of those lakes that are froze, and they get some decent fishing. But, you know, Central Washington, West Side, you know, we don't know anything about it.
Mm-hmm.
It's something brand new. But you're able to fish those fish, whether it's at Lake Cascade for giant perch, whether it's fishing, you know, I know portions of Hayden, you know, a number of different lakes over in the Spokane, Coeur d'Alene.
Well, even
you know,
Wallowa Lake, my brother's been fishing
exactly.
on Wallowa Lake.
You know, you start looking
when it ice is over.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's stuff that we have, and it's a lot of fun. It helps extending that whole portion and learning something a little bit different about the fish than what we usually do.
Yeah.
So
yeah, absolutely. So give ice fishing a try. I think you're really going to love it. It's a lot of fun. You can check out some of our television shows and the upcoming one that we'll have for the fishing we did at Bridge and Hathaway, and learn some of the techniques and just really see how much fun it is. Like I said, make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel so that you get automatic notifications. We're also on Instagram and Facebook, as always. Follow us there. You'll see all kinds of things that we post, not just fishing, but hunting related as well. And I'll encourage you to sign up for the Mac Attack with Max Lure. They have a free monthly online magazine that has all kinds of fishing tips. You go to their website, maxlure.com, and you can sign up for that, and also receive all kinds of information that will help you be a better fisherman, not just for ice fishing. All right, so with that, we'll talk to you the next time.